your latest edition now then is called Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, and this is a new revised editions. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about some of the additions and some of the things that you've expanded on in this new version.
Yeah, what happened with Alchemy of Nine Dimensions is when it went to press in 2004, I still did not have all of the scientific information on the ninth dimension. Now, Alchemy of Nine Dimensions is working with 9 dimensions of consciousness, which each one of us is able to access. And I went to press finally in 2004 because the information was so important, but I was very much aware that I didn't fully have the ninth dimension in yet, the scientific level. And so then the next thing that happened as things go is in 2005, I discovered the research of Carl Johan Kalaman,
yes,
whom I know your listeners are very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl Johan Kalaman's theory of time acceleration in the Mayan calendar was the missing piece of Alchemy of Nine Dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to know Carl. I ended up writing a book about his research called The Mayan Code. And then finally, after I got the Mayan Code done, I realized that I really needed to add this piece of information to Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. So fortunately, the publisher was agreeable. But when an author revises a book, it's usually just an absolute mess because they end up changing almost every sentence because you've grown so much since you wrote a book.
Of course.
And so 2 things happened that really amazed me. First of all, 90% of the book was perfect, and that really shocked me because I'm very dyslexic and I've had an extremely hard time learning how to be a writer. And I just couldn't believe that the book was so beautifully polished. But the one piece that was not right in the book, besides the addition of Carl Kalaman's theory in the 9th chapter, the other thing that was not completely clear in the book were issues around the 4th dimension. And the 4th dimension has to do with the dark and the light and the global elite and God control and all of those complex issues that we all struggle with. And I realized when I was working on the book that back in 2004, I was still not totally clear about that dimension. So I did some revisions in the 4th chapter and cleared up the issue of the collective mind. The 4th dimension rules the collective mind. And the 4th dimension is also a dimension that we access by means of our feelings. And then once we start to go into our feeling body, then we have access to the higher dimensions, the 5th through the 9th dimension. So those higher dimensions come into the 4th dimension, and that's where we receive them. We receive them by intuition and feelings, and then finally our minds are able to access what's going on. What was going on back in 2004 for me is I still had not figured it out. So I polished the 4th dimension, and I'm happy to say at this point that I think it's really perfect, and I think it's an extremely clear and accurate description of how we are working with the collective mind and how we're manipulated in that dimension. And I'm very happy about this because I'd say that maybe is the most important issue for all of us, is to get clear in that dimension. So that's what happens with it.
There you go. The global elite, a very important topic, obviously, as you say, and that I do kind of want to take our listeners, I guess, through some of the dimensions and go back to the 4th one, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the global elite a little bit later then. But if you would, can you give us a little bit of an outline of a journey, so to speak, through these 9 dimensions and comment on why 9 as well, of course?
Yeah. Let me identify them and also give us a sense of what we get out of being able to work with them. Now, this system of dimensionality came to me from the Pleiadians back in 1995. And I wrote a book called The Pleiadian Agenda, which is a channel book. And it's a channel book that describes these 9 dimensions. So they came first to me from another dimension, and then I spent 14 or 15 years teaching them and also writing Alchemy of Nine Dimensions, attempting to elucidate more about what these dimensions were about. But I think we need to start by saying that this information was received in a channeled state, and when it came to me, I found many, many things about it that didn't make sense, contradicted current science, and I had real problems with. Mm-hmm. But what I did in the Pleiadian Agenda was I just simply wrote down what they said, whether I thought whatever I thought about it. And so let me give you those 9 dimensions and give you a sense of how they benefit us. And then, of course, what happens with alchemy is alchemy fleshes it out. In other words, the first book received it, and the second book fleshed it out. So according to the Pleiadians, there are 9 dimensions that all humans are able to access, and not only able to access, but the Pleiadians also said that regardless of what anybody is doing on our planet Earth, they said at the end of the Mayan calendar, which back in those days I thought of as 2012. Now I think of it as 2011 because I'm in agreement with Carl Kalaman.
Okay.
So what they said was they said at the end of the Mayan calendar, all 9 dimensions would open on this planet, and it doesn't matter what anybody is doing. All of a sudden, they're going to have 9 dimensions of consciousness instead of 3 dimensions. So what the Pleiadians said is the first dimension is the center of the Earth, which is an iron core crystal. The second dimension is the realm between the iron core crystal and the surface of the planet. So it's like the telluric realm, the rocks and minerals below the crust of the planet. The third dimension is linear space and time on the surface of the planet, which is the dimension that we inhabit, of course. The fourth dimension is the collective mind, and that dimension comes from the thoughts and feelings of all the humans on the planet. And for instance, animals don't have a collective mind, even though they're very superior. Animals and plants are actually very superior beings, but they do not participate in the collective mind. Lucky for them.
Lucky for them,
and
yeah.
So, yeah, right. Your dog doesn't worry about the war in Iraq, you know.
Yeah.
But the fourth dimension not only is the collective mind and all these thoughts and feelings as a collective, it's also the realm that connects all of us. And so understanding this dimension is the key to moving into oneness and connectivity, which is, I think, what's happening. Then, once we go through the issues of these thoughts and feelings and polarized realms in the fourth dimension, the next dimension, the fifth dimension, is the opening of the heart. It's the realm of unconditional love. And then once we move into the realm of unconditional love, the next dimension above that is the sixth dimension, of course. And the sixth dimension is a realm of geometrical fields. And it's actually very much related to Plato's theory of the world of forms and the world of ideals. And so this dimension is more subtle than that fifth dimension. We're starting to move into like a geometrical realm. We're starting to move into more kind of mental field. Then the seventh dimension is the dimension of sound, and it's the same thing as the music of the spheres that Kepler talked about. And we already know scientifically that sound creates geometry. This has been very well demonstrated with cymatics, for example. And so, as you can see, Henrik, you can go either way with this dimension. So we can be in the seventh dimension and we can be in the realm of sound. Then sound creates geometry, and then as we move into the fifth dimension, the geometry moves into the human heart. But moving down the seventh dimension, the eighth dimension is a dimension of divine consciousness, a dimension of oneness. And this dimension, this is exactly what the same thing as what the Bible says. The Bible says that the Word created form, and so God spoke, and then the seventh dimension of sound comes in with the Word, and then the Word starts to create form. So this is very much in synchronicity with a lot of the world religions. And then the most fascinating thing about the Pleiadian idea, which I did not understand until I ran into Carl's work, is that Pleiadians are saying that the ninth dimension is time, and that time is actually a higher dimension than divine consciousness, which was very, very confusing for me for years until I ran into Carl's theory, which is showing us that the Mayan calendar is a time-coded evolutionary form, which is then creating the divine mind and then creating all these dimensions.